Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. A federal appeals court reaffirmed that DACA is illegal. DACA is the Obama-era program that shields certain illegal immigrants from deportation. NTD's Melina Wisecup is with us with more details. Now, Melina, what does this ruling mean for the current recipients and the future of DACA?
So this latest ruling essentially means that the future of DACA is uncertain, though the program remains intact for now. So current DACA recipients, that accounts for around 600,000 people, will continue to get their benefits. They can reapply for benefits and they'll continue to get employment authorization, etc. So while that group is not affected by this, new applicants are.
For initial applicants, as they call them, aren't going to be able to receive benefits until this litigation reaches an end, which could be years from now.
This latest ruling simply reaffirms what Texas Judge Andrew Hannon ruled back in July of 2021. He determined that DACA, which stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, was created illegally. For one, because Congress never gave the executive branch the authority to cancel deportations for illegal immigrants. And secondly, because the Obama administration did not go through the proper procedures to create the program. If the Biden administration files a formal appeal, the case will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. In addition, the Supreme Court is already set to hear another case regarding immigration enforcement.
But the Supreme Court is going to hear that case in December. The decision in that case is actually going to have a huge bearing on whether or not the Biden administration can continue to ignore the laws that Congress has written and allow, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people into the United States a month. It would be a lot better if President Biden went back and adopted Remain in Mexico and some of the other good policies that President Trump had. I don't see that happening, certainly not before the midterms.
So Congress has still not taken any action on immigration legislation. We've asked both Republicans and Democrats how they feel this issue should be dealt with. Democrats, of course, point fingers at Republicans, saying that it's their fault that immigration is the immigration issue is not solved, blaming Republicans for not joining them to pass legislation such as to fortify DACA, while Republicans say that the first step that Congress needs to take is to secure the border. So they have been at a stalemate on this for a very long time, which is frustrating, especially for immigration advocates who now say that this latest ruling is just an indication that the only way they can save DACA is for Congress to pass a law to fortify it. Now, the House has twice passed a bill that would provide a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers, although that legislation has not garnered enough support in the Senate to get it to the White House. Steve, back to you.
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting. Another bus carrying illegal immigrants from Texas arrived this morning at the U.S. Naval Observatory, which is Vice President Kamala Harris's D.C. residence. Today's bus is the second one this week. A non-governmental group that's been helping illegal border crossers says that the bus brought 38 people, including single adults and families. It's part of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's campaign to provide what he's described as relief to overwhelmed border communities. Texas has sent more than 8,200 illegal immigrants on about 200 buses to D.C. since last April. And the midterm elections are just a month away. One key issue on many voters' minds this year will be illegal immigration. We had a chance to sit down with E.J. Antoni, research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, to discuss the impact of illegal immigration both on the midterms and on the U.S. economy. Here's a look. E.J. Antoni, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
E.J., right now we have the midterm elections coming up. A lot of talk about illegal immigration. What are some of the main points that you think are pressing right now?
Well, I think one of the key things to look at is in terms of what is going on in our immigration system. What is wrong with it right now? What the detrimental effects are that stem from that. A lot of it goes back to the fact that we don't have a meritocracy when it comes to immigration. I mean, we don't have meritocracy when it comes to a lot of things anymore, but particularly when it comes to immigration. We're no longer concerned about bringing the best and the brightest here. And one of the reasons why we can have that luxury, if you want to call it that, is because of the welfare state. And when you have a welfare system that allows people to come to this nation and not to work and not to make their own way and to essentially leech off of the system, not that all migrants do that, but some certainly do. When you have that kind of a system in place, now merit no longer needs to factor in to your decision to come to this country.
So what is the economic detriment to the country with illegal immigration?
Well, there are a few things that happen. One of which is that it really affects the wages of Americans, but also it affects taxes. The reason for that is because it has such a drag on government expenses, and obviously those expenses need to be paid for via taxes. When you have a welfare system that not only allows for these immigrants to be leeches on the system, but actually encourages it, right? That adds a tremendous cost. And just to illustrate that point, if you go back to the '96 welfare reform, which was signed by a Democrat, Bill Clinton, half of the savings from that legislation came from the exclusion of migrants, and those were legal migrants, but the exclusion of migrants from the welfare state.
Another part of the coin, it's something that's really not talked about even by Republicans, is the term economic migrants. Could you explain that and give us your thoughts on this?
Certainly. I mean, like most euphemisms today, though, this one isn't really grounded in much reality. Obviously, people can have a better life here than in just about anywhere else in the world, whether you work or not, right? I mean, if you're willing to work, you can make your way in America. That is still true, to a lesser extent than it used to be years ago, but it's still true. However, if you choose not to work, you can also make a pretty comfortable living here in America. There's really not even a problem of income inequality in our country. The problem is income equality. And what I mean by that is that if you look at, for example, people in the lowest income quintile, who do not work at all, a family of four, let's say, who are on all kinds of government assistance, they have roughly the same disposable income as that same family of four in the middle income quintile. In other words, why is the average man working? Why would the common man break his back to provide for his family when the government would do it for free? And that provides a tremendous disincentive for people not to work. So again, if you're going to come to this country to get a better life for yourself, I think that's wonderful. But if you're going to do it on the taxpayer's dime, I don't think that's wonderful at all. Unfortunately, though, they have that option.
If it's just as simple of a policy change or a flip of a switch, why do you think Democrats or the current administration is not willing to do something?
Yeah, that's a great question. I suppose the pithy answer is you just have to ask them. But if I could, speculate for a moment, I think it has a lot to do with voting. I think they believe that they are engineering a permanent voting base by creating a permanent class of people that are essentially beholden to them for their support. Because once you get on to that very addictive regimen of welfare, it's incredibly difficult to ever break free.
E.J. Antoni, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Biden is in New York today touting the CHIPS and Science Act, what he says about new investments and guardrails to protect them from ending up in China. NTD's Iris Tao has more.
Touring an IBM plant in upstate New York, President Biden vows to help America lead the next decade by boosting chip production.
This is about economic security, folks. It's about national security. The United States has to lead the world in producing these advanced chips.
IBM announced a $20 billion investment in New York to develop and manufacture semiconductors and more.
And the White House says the announcements are part of a manufacturing boom fueled by the CHIPS and Science Act that Biden signed into law in August. The law provides over $52 billion for the chip manufacturing industry in the U.S., and Biden says it will help solve a domestic chip shortage and help the U.S. gain an edge over China.
China is trying to move ahead of us in manufacturing them. It's no wonder, literally, the Chinese Communist Party actively lobbied against the CHIPS and Science Act that I've been pushing in the United States Congress.
Biden also stressed that there are guardrails preventing federal subsidies included in the package from being used to invest in China instead.
We're going to make sure the companies that take these taxpayers' dollars do not turn around and make investments in China, investments that undermine our supply chains and national security. That's a guarantee.
Just weeks ago, Biden visited another chip plant in Ohio. And as midterms approach, the president has sought to capitalize on such investment announcements, touting them as his legislative wins.
And after giving the speech, Biden's also attending 2 Democratic fundraisers, both on Thursday. And a busy schedule comes as the party tries to defend a slim majority in both the House and the Senate. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Gun sales are still at near record highs. The firearms industry and FBI have counted over 1 million sales each month over the past 3 years. The year with the most gun sales is 2020, followed by 2021. This year is on track to come in third. Industry experts say that 1.2 million guns were sold in the month of September because about 8 in 10 people think that violent crime has risen. They say gun buyers are responding to a need for personal safety. High inventory and lower prices are making gun ownership easier. Inflation may be affecting other merchandise, but gun industry experts are saying prices are lower now than they've been in over a decade. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.